So, when I was about 8 years old, I looked out my back window one day and I saw a rat. And this rat was staggering around and foaming at the mouth. Yeah. Now, I had just read the book, To Kill a Mockingbird, so I was already well-versed in the symptoms of rabies in a mammal. And I dutifully got my mother, and she called animal control, and they came and they took the rat away. I thought they were taking him to the rat hospital. When I found out that they were taking him away to an untimely, or perhaps under the circumstances, timely and kind death, I was very, very upset for days. And finally, my mother had my Sunday school teacher come have a little chat with me about life and death. And at the time, I was very unsatisfied with her answer, and frankly, I'm still unsatisfied. Because what she said was there was a vast difference between animals and humans, and that we were Baptists, not Buddhists. She actually said that. So we did not, according to her, we did not believe in the sanctity of all life. Animals didn't have souls, and we were primarily concerned with the eternal souls of human beings, blah, 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 blah. She also gave me a really snarky lecture several years later when I tried going on a hunger strike to get a puppy, but that's another sermon. So, with all due respect to my Sunday school teacher, Blanche Lewis, God rest her soul, how different are humans and animals? Well, as much as some people would like to believe otherwise, apparently not much. DNA is universal. It is literally in every plant, animal, human, bacteria. Even the COVID virus has DNA. And now this is a little esoteric, but hear me out, and probably there are people in this room who understand this better than I do. That would be almost everyone, probably. But DNA is made up of a code of 4 nucleotides. Do not ask me what a nucleotide is, I don't know. But anyhow, these 4 nucleotide thingies, adenine, cytosine, guanine, and thymine, form codes that are the building blocks for proteins, and these proteins are what go on to make life. And for all forms of DNA, animal, human, plant, the codes, these 4 protein codes, are almost all the same. So with a few minor exceptions, essentially there's no genetic difference between human and animal DNA except for what it codes for. My dog got a code for curly hair, I'm kind of jealous, and a tail, which I can do without. But essentially, there's no genetic difference between us and the animals, and of course the amount of DNA, genome sizes vary greatly from organism to organism. For instance, as between a human being and a chimpanzee, more than 98% of the DNA is exactly the same. And it's actually not that much more of a difference between humans and, say, dogs and cats. Reptiles are really another story. If you have questions on that, take them along with your reptile to Reverend Junia. Snails aren't reptiles, are they? They're mollusks, right? Mollusks are okay. So what does all this mean? Well, first of all, it means that sometime next month we're going to have a chimpanzee as a guest preacher. I personally will be looking forward to that. I just pray she's not a better preacher than me. But the other thing that it means is that those of you who brought your animal companions here today because they feel like family to you, yeah? You're right. They are family. Yeah. They're like cousins distant cousins. And sometimes people tell me they bring their pets for a blessing because Fido really needs it. He's a little rascal, or last year's blessing seems to have worn off and it's time for a new one. And while I wish I had the kind of power suggested to change animal behavior in that simple act of blessing, believe me, I do, I sometimes wonder if receiving and gathering these animals together has more to do with discovering the holy, uncovering for ourselves once again how each animal on this earth, made lovingly and with great care by God, is the divine and beautiful creature. And our pets, our loved ones, those we have today, and those who have journeyed with us along the way and are no longer here, these creatures that love us unconditionally no matter what, remind us that we also then are holy and divine and full of God. And these blessings on our beloved pets help us to see that we don't need to do anything to achieve greater holiness. Rather, all we have to do is see that we are holy in order to achieve all that God dreams for us to accomplish. Because they kind of do. They truly are our family. So why do we bless the animals? I think most of you all are familiar with the basics of the creation story in Genesis. Smile and nod at me now. Yes? You know, God created the heavens and the earth, and then over the course of the next 6 days, God created everything in it: the seas, the skies, the sun, the moon, the stars, the plants, the fishes in the sea, the animals on the earth, and then finally, the human animals. And in that story, there are two elements that are introduced into the world at the same time. On the fifth day of creation, life and blessing. Life and blessing, they go together. Animals and human beings alike share a blessing, the ability and the charge to go forth and reproduce and fill the earth, and we both have life-giving powers. And in the Genesis story, both God and the creatures have an important role in the creative enterprise, and our spheres of activity are interrelated. God has shaped the created order in such a way that the Creator, God, and the creatures, God and us, share overlapping spheres of interdependence and creative responsibility. We depend on each other, we depend on the earth, and we all depend on God for our existence and continuing life. And we depend on God for blessing. I want to be clear. Whenever somebody asks me for a blessing of whatever sort, I try to be clear. I don't convey blessing. Blessing is way above my pay grade. It's God and God alone who conveys blessing, and I don't have that power. I just remind you, God alone has that power. But when God conveys blessing, God gives us power and strength and potential. And the very first divine words to human beings are about our relationship not to God, but to the earth. And God's command that we be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. God is sharing the exercise of power over the earth with us human creatures. But have dominion over has to be understood in terms of caregiving. And I think sometimes that the notion of subduing the earth has been taken as a license to exploit and abuse, as the image of God in the world, we are to relate to the world as God relates to us. And God does not exploit and abuse us, right? Okay? So how are we supposed to relate to the earth and the creatures within it? Well, there may be an answer in the book of Job. And first of all, I want to highlight this. Andrew, who did that reading from the book of Job, happens to be a veterinarian. I think that's very cool. Good job, Andrew. Thank you. Andrew, it says in Job to listen to the animals. Is that something you do as a vet? They tell him a lot. Yeah, if you just listen. And the passage from Job that Andrew read says that there is crucial knowledge that every creature understands. Job says, "But ask the animals, and they will teach you. Who among all these does not know that the hand of God has done this? In God's hand is the life of every living thing and the breath of every human being." In God's hand is the life of every being, every living thing. And Job says, even the animals know this. Do we? Do we? So today we bless them all the animals that are here, and all the animals that aren't here, we bless them too. The ones who are near but wouldn't or couldn't come, like, the fox, the deer, the raccoon who watches us from behind our green bin, and the cats who stayed home because they really didn't want to come, and those who are far away, the butterflies and the goldfinches that have already flown south, the tigers and elephants and Komodo dragons who live in far-off exotic places. And the best blessing we can offer them, perhaps, is a commitment to work for the preservation of their habitats so that they can simply continue to live and bless us with their lives. And those who are not here in body but may be with us in spirit, those animals who are gone from our presence, like the dodo, the ivory-billed woodpecker, the Pinta Island tortoise, which was declared extinct just a couple of years ago, like our own beloved pets who've crossed the Rainbow Bridge. I remember my dogs, Jake and Kitty, my cats, Katie and Butchie and Kelso. You may remember others. They have blessed us, haven't they? And that's why we bless animals. They bless us. They're true companions. When we get home from work, our furry friends are overjoyed at our return. You should see Lola when I bring her home to Janet. The two of them just have an absolute love fest, and I'm kind of left out. But they give us comfort and affection. They lower our blood pressure. They offer unconditional love. Think about that when we sing our closing song, OCM, we are all family, OCM, we're all the same. With the animals, we celebrate that bond of creation that God gives us in life and in blessing, and we share it with all life. Biblical wisdom is both the skills to live in the earth as a gift from God and the values to treasure the earth as a gift from God. And as a church, we are and always have been and always must be proclaiming the truth that the gospel, the good news that God shares with us, is concerned with restoring relationships, restoring 3 areas of relationship. I think principally the good news brings peace between us humans and God. And secondly, it can restore relationships between people through God, who breaks down all the walls of hostility and division. And finally, I think it makes possible a renewed relationship between people and God's creation itself. We begin by taking seriously the perspective of Scripture that makes it plain that we are intimately involved in creation. We are to be co-creators with God, and we live in creation. We are God's creation, and we express our relationship to God and our witness to that relationship by all that we are and all that we do. So let's bless the animals, all of them. And that includes our fellow human animals, because we're just like them. God bless us, everyone. Amen.